Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's episode of the podcast where we sit down with some of the sharpest minds in the management consulting industry. This episode is powered by Clubhouse AI. At Clubhouse AI, we help management consulting firms break free from outdated lead gen methods like networking events and referrals, which often feel more like wishful thinking than a real strategy. Our battle-tested, data-driven client acquisition system brings in your ideal clients with no chasing, no guesswork, just predictable compounding growth. If you're in management consulting and looking to scale your business and see results in the first week, DM us the word growth for a free consultation. Now, without further ado, let's jump right into it. Today, we have a very special guest who is Ted Davis, founder of Grace Strategic Services. Thank you so much for being here today. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your story and what you do?
Well, Ethan, thank you very much for the invitation. Thank you for the opportunity to talk with you and share some thoughts with your audience. I have been in the coaching, consulting, and training business for 28 years now, and I have been, as I often like to refer to myself, as a practitioner, as a student, and a teacher of leadership for 60 years now. I think I always point back to my first opportunity to be a leader was when I was in elementary school. I was a patrol boy. Back in the 60s when I went to elementary school. This is long, long before you ever thought of it. We didn't have crossing guards. These men and women who, adults, walk into the crosswalk with a sign that says stop and control traffic. Long before that, it was students. It was elementary students. So had a bunch of young men, and we were trained how to be a patrol boy, and we're given a belt and a badge and all this other stuff. But anyway, I go back that far to say, okay, that was the start of my experience as a patrol boy, and then very fortunate, have great opportunities through high school. But the biggest thing was very privileged and honored to attend the United States Military Academy, otherwise known as West Point. Graduated from there in 1974, which tells you that I'm an old man. And then spent 22 years active duty in the Army. A wonderful, wonderful opportunity, a great career. And so I retired in 1996. My first job on retirement was as a vice president for international marketing and sales. So I was traveling the world trying to establish a sales and distribution network for our aluminum forms business. When that job went away, I started this business and been at it, as I said, 28 years. My passion is to help leaders, strategic leaders, find, develop, and unlock the wisdom they need to meet their biggest challenges. Um, so that's a little bit. I'm married, been married now. We're in our 50th year, 50 years of happy wedded bliss, of three grown kids, and they've blessed my wife and I with seven grandkids.
That's
So,
awesome.
yeah.
Congratulations. That's amazing. And yeah, it's a great story. I'm actually surprised not many entrepreneurs are make their first business successful. I'm glad you were able to make your first attempt something that worked for you and lasted you 20 years in entrepreneurship. That's awesome. What inspired you to start your own business rather than going to work for somebody else?
Well, when my first post retirement from the Army, and again, 22 years and I retired, um, I'm very fortunate. Just on a chance meeting, a gentleman recruited me to be his vice president for international marketing and sales. Unfortunately, the company was over leveraged, and they had to trim big time. The board directed the CEO, the guy, the owner, to trim it. So all of us officers who were not um, family members, we were let go. So I lost my first job, and in the meantime, a consultant I had brought in to look at the gold that was hidden in all these files that I inherited. Okay, where is it? There's somebody in here that we've overlooked, and so I had a consultant come in and do some work for us. Anyway, he advised me and recommended that I get in the consulting business, and he would get me my first client. And so that's what got me started, was just a suggestion, recommendation, strong recommendation from a friend. and didn't know any better. And so got started. And fortunately for me, um, because I was a military retiree, I had a have a retirement pay. That's kind of my security blanket. I probably kept going at it in the early days because I had no clients. I had no idea what I was going to do. Well, I had a general idea what I wanted to do, but would it work? And being a strategic leader um, was a passion. I say my last job on active duty, and that's why I'm here in Leavenworth, Kansas. I was on the faculty of the Command and General Staff College here at Fort Leavenworth, and I was training Army strategists, actually strategists from other services as well. But anyway, so I was training strategists and had this passion for doing that. And when I started my consulting business, that's what I wanted to do is take all of the strategic analysis and synthesis tools, the mindset is totally transferable. But what I needed to do was move it into a different scope, obviously, rather than national security. Now it was going to be about corporate success. How do you grow that corporate success? And rather than looking at a military or a national political adversary, now we're looking at obviously markets. So I had to understand and learn how to analyze markets, get to understand who's a buyer. What are they buying? When are they going to buy it? How are they going to buy it? Where are they going to buy it? So forth. Um, so it was a great transition, but I had no clients when I first started, and I just kept plugging away at it, and pretty soon got a few clients and got a few retainers, and I kept responding to what a client wanted. For example, I got started in doing surveys. I've done a lot of employee engagement surveys, which are great products. Developed a specific format for doing that. And it was all in response to one of my clients saying, "Hey, I really need to serve on my people. We need to know how they're thinking." And I said, "Okay, well, I'll figure out how to do that." And I investigated it, learned how to do surveys, invested in some technology to do it, and then stuck with it. So we've done that probably for about 25 years now.
Awesome.
So starting off, it was to respond to, which is a good thing to do. I mean, you got to be responsive to the marketplace because you got to help them get results. You're only going to stay successful in consulting, coaching, and training if you get results. People have got to see business growth. Fortunately, many of my clients were able to do that. Or then, as a leader, do you see individuals enhance um, their leadership skills, particularly on the ability to communicate, to inspire other people. And then that eventually ends up, obviously, making a difference in the business. So the business succeeds. So it's always about what are the results people are getting because of what you offer them. So in the early days, it was totally responsive to what are the needs. At this point now, 28 years later, I'm kind of now that I'm older and I don't want to travel nearly as much as I used to, it's okay. Here's what I know I know. Here's what I have to offer. This is what I'm going to offer and kind of offer it to the marketplace, offer it to people who need, again, they want results. I'm rather than going to the need and figuring out the solution, I have a solution. Now let me go find who has that need. So it's a little bit of change. And fortunately, it's because I've had enough success um, and I've been reflective enough to understand, okay, here's what I know, here's how to package it. And I think you see a lot of people nowadays. One of the things I know you want to talk about is trends in the business. And I think it's so much of people trying to package their solutions for given problems, narrowing their scope. Um, and that's one of the things that I've changed is here lately, for a long time. And it came from being an Army officer, because in the Army, you were given a new job every 2 or 3 years. And then you learned how to do it and you moved on. So we were kind of generalists. And that was our attitude was whatever job you give me, I'm going to learn how to do it and I'm going to do it well. And don't necessarily going to stay in the same track. Well, in the private sector, that's not the way. At least that's what I advise people now. I was too much of a generalist. I would go anywhere, I never specialized in a silo, let's say construction or IT or medical or so forth. I think now, if I was recommend advising somebody, my age when I first got started, and they're going to get it, I'd say, okay, pick out a silo and become very knowledgeable of how. So if you're going to be a trainer, a leadership trainer, look at what's unique about leadership in construction. Specialize in that because pick a silo that has enough size to it that you can find enough clients to obviously have a healthy business and thrive. But I would suggest that not only is it okay developing leaders, but how do you do it within a silo like construction or IT or whatever and specialize in that way? So that is one thing that I would recommend to anybody that's starting out is know what the expertise is, but then how does it apply to a specific target audience, and then become the expert to that target audience. And maybe after you figure out one, then you can figure out and expand to two or to three. But I would have, as I look back on my 28 years, what would have been better at my start was had I had I specialized a little bit more.
Right.
So a little bit of rambling there, but
That's okay. No, I think it is a very important thing for people to niche down and make sure they are experts in what they're doing, and that's easier to market yourself, right? If you're saying, "Listen, I do all these different things well, nobody can do everything well at once, right?" It's more marketable for yourself if you can say, "Okay, I am the best at consulting for restaurant chains, or I'm the best for helping you, like you said, develop your leadership skills in the construction industry." And it's much easier for you to get yourself across uh, to your target audience, like you said, these construction companies or the restaurant chains, whatever it may be, and say, listen, I specialize in what you do. I am an expert. I can help you. And it makes it a lot easier to get those people on board and to get those deals going. I 100% agree. I think that's awesome. Now, going back to you, how do you fit into the bigger picture of your company? And what does your day-to-day look like?
well, I am kind of the company. I founded it, manage it, have the bright ideas, come up with creative solutions and so forth. So it is centered around me. And right now, I'm spending my time, again, going back over, okay, 28 years, what have I compiled? And I have such, you know, expansive and a depth of training materials that I've developed that I'm looking at it now and saying, okay, how can I package it, repackage it? I'm a great believer there's nothing new under the sun. All we do as consultants and trainers is repackaging it. But in the repackaging, oftentimes you can create it in such a way that there's an attractiveness to it. You refine its the messaging so it really sharpens the focus and it delivers a compelling message that people will uh, recognize. I need that. And so that's what I'm doing now going forward. So my goals, two of them are for 2026 is number one, form some mastermind groups. And so it's again taking a package. What is the solution I offer? Who is a group of business leaders who need this? And then they'll go target and recruit those people into a mastermind group where we can grow together. Because that's one of the things I've learned over the lifetime now is as much as I like the one-on-one coaching, I love doing that and helping a single person. grow by the reflection, by the examination, by the challenge, and so and the accountability and so forth. What I think is even more powerful is the group accountability. So when you can get people in a group, you expand the ideas, you can expand the energy and so forth. So that's why I want to get started here in 2026. It's going to be mastermind groups, number one. Number two is I also want to take all this stuff I've just developed over 28 years and package it on an online leadership training program. And so I'll be launching that by the first of the year. And again, one of the things I want to, there's such a massive amount of online learning out there. It's crowded space. So what can I do that's unique? Um, and one of my focuses in leader development is to convince the leader, the new leader or the old leader, you must consider yourself to be a professional. So even if it's day one, you have stepped into the profession of being a leader. Now, why do I say that? What is that? Well, I think if you look at what is a profession, what constitutes it. Number one, there's a selection process. Think about a doctor or lawyer or, when I was a army officer, there was a selection process. There's a criteria that people were evaluating. Do you have potential? And I think even if you're just simply in a manufacturing floor and somebody comes up and say, "Hey, we need a manager. I need you to be a shift leader," or whatever, you went through a process at least of somebody evaluating, say, "I see you or I have a need of you, and I'm going to point you to this position." Well, I want you to just think about yourself in a position of shift leader because now you're going to influence people. So you're going to be a leader. Think of yourself as now a professional because number one, you've been selected, but number two, then there's every profession has a specific body of knowledge that professional must perfect. If you're going to be a lawyer, you've got to understand the law. If you're a doctor, you understand medicine and a very specific focus of medicine you're going to specialize in. Well, as a leader, you have got to understand human behavior. You have got to be a lifelong learner about human behavior. Again, I've been doing leadership for 60 years and it doesn't stop. I still study human behavior. How to understand human behavior more thoroughly and more with enough wisdom to be able to influence people. And then, thirdly, when you're in a profession, you're held to a higher standard. And if you're in a leadership position, you are held to a higher standard 24/7. It's not that you're simply a leader for 8 hours while you're in the workplace. Know what you do in your family, what you do in your volunteer work or whatever it is. How you live your life is a reflection of your character, and leadership is about character. And so you are always going to be looked at in a different light because you're a leader. So I think for those three reasons that you've been selected, you've got a specific area of knowledge you must learn, and that you're going to be held to a higher standard. Those are three reasons why I think you've got to consider yourself a professional leader. Therefore, act that way. Study the craft. And it's got to start with, and this is what I do when I work with leaders, is one of the first exercises is what's your definition of leadership? As a leader, how do you define it for yourself? As a company, how do we define leadership for our company? Because you need to understand, okay, what are the action verbs? Because leadership is always about human behavior. Leadership is always about a relationship. Leadership is always about influencing others to get some sort of outcome or results. So figure out what are the three or four action verbs that define what you do as a leader. And so that's part of what will be unique about my online training platform is we want to focus on the idea that you're a professional. Therefore, you've got to have your personal definition of leadership. And then you've got to understand What is your branding? How do you brand yourself? How do you behave? And again, it points us back to character. And so we'll talk about what I think are eight essential leadership traits, character traits of a leader.
Awesome.
Um,
Yeah, I think that'd be very valuable for people to go and look at. And it's something that we're seeing a lot of consultants do now is productizing their services. Like you said, making the online platform and making your packages. It's and in the mastermind class as well. It's much easier for you to scale and grow as a business person as your corporation if you have these set packages and deals you can give out rather than doing a one-off custom deal every single time, right? It's a lot easier to grow and scale the business. And in terms of growing and scaling, what's really working well for you right now? What's kind of been frustrating?
well, I have relied on word of mouth for all my career so far. And that has been good because, it was warm leads, and I got to admit, I'm not the best salesperson, and I hate cold calling. So word of mouth referrals has been very successful for me. But I think it's now in this age, particularly what I want to accomplish to expand the reach. Uh, I need to convert to uh, again the packaging, but perfect social media and other resources. And I think obviously what you provide now with one of the changes that's going to affect all of business, but to include consulting, coaching, and training is going to be of artificial intelligence, which you obviously perfect. So I think what you do is going to be essential to people like me. Um, uh, I think every leader now has got to learn about AI, enough AI skills to engage with it, but then beyond it, understanding AI enough about what it's going to do, what its capability is. Not that I've got to have the skills, but I know how to work with people like you who are experts in AI, who do know how to use the large language model to develop the packages and the
Yeah.
communications. So I think what you do is incredibly important, and particularly for people like me. And so I think as a leader, that's another thing I'd recommend is what are you doing to learn because you have to be a change agent. And I think as by definition, leaders have to be change agents because you've got to change the status quo. When the status quo isn't working, what are you going to do to change it? One of my favorite books on leadership, and I recommend it's the number one book I recommend to leaders is Kouzes and Posner's book, Leadership Challenge. And it's a great, great book. And there are five fundamentals. One of them is obviously that you got to challenge the process. When the process isn't working, challenge it. Well, you got to be able to do that because you uh, have the character and you have the knowledge. Um, so I think understanding artificial intelligence is going to be essential to leaders as we move forward.
Right. Yeah, 100%. It's definitely not going away. People thought it might have been a fad in the beginning and just a little trend, but no, it's definitely developing into something that we're going to be seeing every business incorporate into what they're doing. And yeah, I'm glad you're aware now rather than a few years down the line that this is something that people need. And like you said, not every business owner needs to be an expert in AI, but they need to know someone who is an expert, or they need to know how to get in touch with the right people and what they may need for their business rather than knowing, okay, I know how to code this agent and I can incorporate this in my business and integrate it, blah, blah, blah. But they need to at least know what the use cases are and how they can best benefit from it so that they can pick the right tools, pick the right strategies, and pick the right people to implement it for. I think that's awesome. And in terms of AI, how has that affected your business and your growth strategy?
Well, it's affecting it as I go forward. I mean, right now I've just used it on the margins to, in some of my training materials, I've used it to develop scripts for the lessons to speed that up. Obviously, come out now. There's a lot of software, Synthesia and others that can help you with the presentations, because I think we're in a world now you have to have visuals, whether it's the images or it's motion pictures or some sort of video. I mean, that's the standard these days, I think, is having the right kind of videos, the right kind of artwork that supplements the content of what you're trying to say, because it's still got to be the words have got to be there that project the message that you want to say. The artwork supplements it and sharpens it and draws attention to it. So AI can enhance how you do it and the speed with which you do it. But there again, I would suggest who are the experts in AI and for generation of training materials and so forth. So that's what's going to be is affecting me right now, and the tools I'm developing and the people that I'm reaching out to tap into their services. And I think the other thing about it, as we look at AI, you got to understand some of its limitations. You know, there is no social authenticity in AI. In other words, you know, as I mentioned, as you well know, AI is just large language models. It's using a volume of business, but it is not a human being. You know, it cannot be a social creature because it's not. So there's no social genuineness to it. It cannot be empathetic, at least not yet. Maybe someday they'll figure out how to do that, but I don't see when. There's no critical thinking. You know, it does a lot because it can process and look at large language models rather quickly and see patterns and gather stuff together and offer good products. I mean, it's a great tool, but AI for the foreseeable future is a tool. And I think as you learn it and how to use it, you've got to understand its limitations and and compensate for them. You've still got to have the human touch. You cannot allow not you cannot think that AI is going to think in a social way like you and I do as human beings.
Right. Yeah, I 100% agree with you. I think I say in every podcast now, or artificial intelligence is best paired with human intelligence. You got to have both. You can't have one or the other.
Yes.
Um, but yeah, it's definitely not the place right now where it can be working on its own and making these empathetic decisions and all that sort of stuff like that and be a social creature. I definitely think as we continue to develop these agents and uh, let them build on themselves and continue to innovate, I think definitely in the next few years we might see something similar to that. But it's definitely scary stuff, but also cool at the same time and useful for the people that are taking advantage of these products. Well, we've covered almost everything I wanted to cover today. I thank you for going into depth and explaining everything thoroughly and giving some great insight into what you do and how you've been successful. I thank you a lot. And before we go, I wanted to ask you, what's the biggest lesson you've learned along your journey as an entrepreneur or consultant that's helped you become who you are today?
I think the biggest thing is reinforced. I think the most critical skill that leaders must communicate effectively and instill trust. And that is one skill set. Now, it sounds like two. You got to learn how to communicate effectively and you got to learn how to instill trust. But those two things are so inextricably linked, they cannot be separated. So you must consider it as one. You've got to be able to communicate effectively to instill trust. And you must instill trust to be able to communicate effectively because until people trust you, their inferences about what you're saying are going to be clouded by their suspicions. But once there's trust, then it increases the likelihood that their inferences are going to match your intentions. You know, and a sincere intention doesn't guarantee the right inference. People are going to infer what you mean when they trust you, when you have developed a relationship where they know where your character is, where they know your heart is. The old saying is people won't trust you until they learn that you're trustworthy. Um, So I think that is the biggest skill. My exhortation to leaders is you must perfect being able to communicate effectively and instilling trust. That's one skill set. You must master both of them simultaneously. So
Of
that's my,
course.
I think, my biggest lesson learned that I'd share today.
That's amazing. That's valuable for not just being a leader, as well as being a salesman and as a consultant as well. For example, what popped into my mind instantly was, if you're a salesman, you need to have proper communication skills, like you said, and being able to instill trust. That you can't sell to someone that doesn't trust you, right? No one's going to buy from you if they think you're not trustworthy. So, and I think that goes into the leadership as well as a leader, you're selling yourself to the people you're communicating with. You're selling yourself to them that hey, you can trust me. I'm a trustworthy person. You can follow me. I think that's great that you mentioned that, and I'm sure you've used that along your career, and it's helped you become successful. And again, Ted, I thank you for coming on today. I can't wait to get this out there and share this with everybody and see where it takes us. And again, thank you for sharing all your insights and taking your time to be here today.
Thank you. And if people want to get in touch with me, probably the easiest, fastest way, send me a text. My phone number, 913-306-1499. Look forward to hearing from you.
Awesome. Where can they find you on socials or LinkedIn?
Yeah, LinkedIn, obviously, I'm on there, Facebook on, but my email address, TE Davis, 1D, TE Davis at grace for the number four success.com. So
Awesome. Well,
look forward to, yeah.
thank you for sharing, Ted. I hope people
Thank you.
come to you for help and can benefit from your expertise and leadership skills. I think it's amazing. Again, thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you. Have a great day.
You too.